You might be on your period right now. There's a pad in your drawer, ibuprofen in your bag, and a pair of cotton underwear you haven't thought about once today. You've never considered any of that a big deal, right? But here's what I need you to hear. The ability to bleed painlessly, invisibly, with dignity is one of the most recent inventions in all of human history. It came after the telephone, after the car. The first commercial sanitary pad didn't hit shelves until 1920. Before that, for 300,000 years, women had none of it. No pads, no painkillers, and for most of that time, the concept of underwear simply didn't exist. So how did they survive? The answer is wilder than you're expecting, smarter than you'd think, and what it reveals about your life right now is genuinely unsettling. Let's do something first. Clear out every period drama you've ever watched. Forget the flowing gowns and the graceful posture. Forget that vague sense that ancient women's bodies were somehow clean, invisible, like their biology just didn't apply. That's a filter. That's not history. Let's start with underwear. Most people assume that women back then at least had some kind of cloth to use, some basic protection, surely. But here's the thing, fitted closed underwear was not a universal part of human life for most of history. In ancient Rome, women wore loose robes, open at the bottom. In medieval Europe, there was essentially nothing underneath those long skirts. Fitted underwear only became widespread relatively recently. This wasn't a regional quirk, this was the global default. Okay, but what about fabric as a makeshift pad? In the ancient world, cloth was a genuine form of wealth. A decent piece of fabric took enormous time and labor to produce. You weren't cutting it up for a disposable pad every single month. For most women, that simply wasn't an option. National Geographic noted in a dedicated feature that historians have remarkably little record of what ancient women actually used, because for centuries, this was a subject nobody bothered to write down. So picture this. No barrier, no absorbent layer, just an ordinary workday, out in the fields or around the home, with blood running down her legs. This wasn't an isolated hardship for the poorest of the poor. This was the monthly reality for the vast majority of women throughout history. Pause for a second. I know that image is uncomfortable, but that discomfort, that's exactly the door we need to walk through today. So what did they actually do? Humans have this remarkable ability to create options when none seem to exist. The first approach, use what nature provides. Dried moss, wood ash, hay, even natural sea sponge. These are all materials that historical and anthropological records show women actually used across cultures around the world. According to a 2017 study by researchers Drobnik and Stiebel, medieval Scottish women used a type of moss called Sphagnum cymbifolia to absorb menstrual blood, the same moss used to pack battlefield wounds. National Geographic also reported that ancient Egyptian women fashioned tampon-like devices from softened papyrus reeds. That's the oldest documented record of period management we have, roughly 4,000 years old. These things really happened. But think about what that actually felt like. Rough plant material pressed against skin, that kind of friction when you're already cramping. We genuinely cannot imagine that today, and yet they kept going. They worked through it. The second thing I learned stopped me cold. The average modern woman experiences around 400 to 450 periods in her lifetime. But anthropological research on hunter-gatherer populations tells a very different story. Women living that lifestyle may have had fewer than 100 periods total, sometimes far fewer. The most detailed data comes from University of Michigan biological anthropologist Beverly Strassman, who studied the Kung people of the Kalahari Desert. Her research found that due to extended breastfeeding, chronic malnutrition, and intense physical labor, many of these women had fewer than 30 periods in their entire lives. This wasn't unique to one group. It was how the human body responded to extreme conditions. Ovulation simply switched off. That one fact tells two stories at once: how incredibly resilient these women's bodies were, and how brutally hard their lives were. The third thing is the most misunderstood part of this whole story. Have you ever heard of menstrual huts? In many ancient cultures around the world, women were required to leave the main living area during their period and stay in a separate structure until it was over. This practice has been documented across sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Nepal, and various indigenous communities in North America. Beverly Strassman spent more than 20 years doing fieldwork with the Dogon people of Mali, West Africa. She published multiple academic papers on their menstrual hut practice, including data collected over 736 consecutive nights tracking when women entered and left those structures. The standard interpretation, the one you'd find in a textbook, is that this was isolation, punishment. Men believed menstrual blood was unclean, so women were cast out. But there's another way to read it. In a world with no weekends, no sick days, no vacation, where every single day demanded physical labor just to survive, these 7 days were the only legitimate, no questions asked rest a woman was ever allowed to take. Not isolation, not punishment. Women together, talking, looking after each other, sharing food, a space where someone could finally say out loud, "I'm in pain today. I need to lie down." And someone next to her would say, "I know, me too, I've got you." That hut was the only place they were ever allowed to just breathe. So how did the modern world change all of this? It started with a war. During World War I, Kimberly-Clark was supplying the U.S. military with a wood pulp material called cellulose used as surgical bandaging. It absorbed 5 times more blood than cotton at half the cost. Red Cross nurses at the front noticed something. It worked remarkably well for their own periods too. After the war ended, Kimberly-Clark bought back the military surplus, spent nearly 2 years developing it, and in October 1920 launched the world's first mass-produced commercial sanitary pad. They called it Kotex, short for cotton texture. Think about what that moment actually meant. Before this, every woman leaving the house had to run a quiet calculation in her head. Is today safe enough? Can I actually be out in public right now? With a pad and fitted underwear, that calculation disappeared. Women could go to work in factories, ride trains, show up anywhere without planning around their cycle. This was a wall, in the best possible sense. It protected something private, and in doing so, it opened up the entire outside world. That was real progress. That deserves to be recognized. But every wall has 2 sides. Here's the part almost no one says out loud. That wall didn't just protect women. It also sealed something important inside. Pads made bleeding invisible. Painkillers made cramping silent. Modern period products made everything perfectly, seamlessly hidden. And quietly, a new social logic took hold. Because you're invisible now, because you took the pill, you're expected to act like nothing is happening. You're cramping, but you took ibuprofen, so you can make the meeting. You're losing blood, but no one can tell, so of course you'll hit the deadline. In the ancient world, bleeding couldn't be hidden, so the entire community, whether out of reverence, taboo, or genuine care, had to acknowledge it, had to work around it. Today, the technology worked too well. It made the whole thing disappear from public life entirely. Let me ask you something. Actually pause and think about this. When was the last time, during your period, you told someone, "I don't feel well today"? I need you to understand that. For a lot of people, the honest answer is never, or maybe once, and the other person had no idea what to say. This isn't just a personal feeling. The data backs it up. HR Magazine reported on a survey of 2,000 menstruating workers conducted by the organization DPG. 74% said they felt the need to hide sanitary products at work. 60% said they were completely uncomfortable discussing periods with colleagues or managers. And 57% admitted they had lied about their reasons for taking sick days, rather than say it was period-related. This isn't one person's problem. This is a collective silence. You tuck a pad into your sleeve before walking to the bathroom. At the checkout, you instinctively shift your bag to cover the box. You take the ibuprofen, straighten up in the conference room, and say, "I'm fine." Really? That's not dignity, that's loneliness. The woman who could say, "I'm in pain today," inside that ancient hut, she has no equivalent today, no protected space, no social permission. Because the technology filled that space instead. And technology told the world, she's handled it. She's fine. Let's bring this full circle. 300,000 years ago, women had nothing. They used moss. They used ash. They used each other. Bleeding was a visible, communal, shared experience. It was hard. It was raw. But no one faced it alone. Then came the Industrial Revolution, modern medicine, pads, painkillers. Women walked out of that hut and into factories, into schools, into every room that had been closed to them. That was real liberation. It matters. But somewhere in that progress, something got quietly handed over. The right to say it out loud. The right to say, "I'm in pain today, and I need that to be seen." We traded visibility for dignity, and the price of that dignity is a woman sitting alone in a bathroom stall, changing as fast as she can, washing her hands, walking back out, and smiling. The ancient woman, the one with no protection, no products, nothing but the people around her, was dealing with something physically so much harder than what we face today. But she was not an island. Modern women have every tool ever invented for this, and so many of them are carrying all of it alone. I'm not sure that's the kind of equality we actually wanted. But I do know this. When we can talk about it, even just leaving a comment that says, "I've felt this too," that silence starts to crack. That's everything for today. If this video made you stop and think, even for just a second, whether about history or about yourself, hit the like button. Let me know you made it to the end. And if someone in your life needs to see this, send it to them. See you in the next one.